Holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. It's Wednesday night. That means we're back at it, at least for a couple nights, because this weekend, of course, Don and I are heading over to Kelso, Washington for the Squatch Fest. And if you're in the neighborhood, please check it out. Kelso, Washington is just on the Washington side of Portland there, so that's where we're going to be. We're not doing a booth or anything, just to refresh your memory in case you've heard a little bit about this, but we're going to be wandering around. But if you see us there, we'd love for you to come up and say hello. That's coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and I think Sunday we're coming back. So it's kind of a whiplash weekend, but it should be a good time. So hopefully we'll meet some of you there. That'd be really cool. But I suppose I should move on with the show. Ooh, I forgot the moon. There's the moon. Got to turn on the moon, ladies and gentlemen. The moon is bright and shining tonight. I got to make sure it shines different colors there. There we go. All right, so without further ado, I would like to welcome once again to the show my eldest, my firstborn, the other big toe. Don's one big toe, here's another big toe. And this is, of course, my son Sheldon, who is co-hosting with me tonight.
Hey!
And this is, ladies and gentlemen, his last studio appearance.
Yes, indeed.
He's heading out tomorrow back to the Minnesota land, so
sad day.
It is. It's tough to see you go, buddy. I've really loved having you here, and it's been a lot of fun. We've had a couple of weeks of hanging out, so that's been really wonderful. But how have you enjoyed doing this, or have you enjoyed doing this, or how do you feel about this whole experience?
Legitimately, every single day I have come has been a great experience every single time. From the stories to just being on the show in general and for the community. I mean, it's really, every aspect has been amazing.
Yeah, you've been great, and I really appreciate you coming in and sitting in with me, because honestly, it's always makes my job easier. You know, it's much easier when Don's here. It's much easier when you're here because, obviously I got the chat room, and you guys out there are wonderful. Don't get me wrong, but it's nice to have somebody to go, hey, what do you think? And to get a response and to have discussions and such. But it's been a lot of fun, and of course, you'll be greatly missed. I've loved having you. It's been a dream come true in many ways. But So, ladies and gentlemen, this will be Sheldon's last studio show with me, and then he's back on the road.
That's right.
So enjoy it while it lasts.
Hopefully everybody does.
I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And thank you all for welcoming Sheldon in and being okay with him sitting here. Of course, that's been a lot of fun. And you guys have all been wonderful about it. So thank you for that. Because, it's just really cool. We got a great show lined up for you tonight, at least in my opinion. I'm a little biased, of course, but I believe it's going to be a great show. But you know what they say, it is what you make it.
That's right. Yeah.
So hopefully I make it a good show. No, I don't know. I don't know. We're going to do our best, but we got a lot of great stuff to get through, a lot of UFO stuff tonight. Of course, we got the news coming up in just moments here, and that'll be a lot of fun. But I do want to extend a welcome to anybody that wants to call into the show. The number for the show is 720-923 0500. The number's above my head under the words Paranormal Portal up there. If you want to call in, please feel free to do so, but please wait till after the news segment of the show because I'm really focused on getting through the articles that are in that segment, and I'm probably going to leave you on hold anyway. So, but as soon as we get done with that, that'll be great. Oh, say if it isn't, it isn't so, Sheldon. Say it isn't so, Sheldon. Portal Mom. Portal Mom, how you doing,
right.
Mom? That's my mom, ladies and gentlemen. It's a family affair here on the Portal, I'm telling you.
It is. It's great.
It is great. It's been wonderful. So, but you're doing good? You ready to go for another 2 hours, buddy?
Always.
All right. So I guess the best place to start, ladies and gentlemen, is first of all, hope you're all ready because it's about to get spooky. Still muted. Oops. I do want to say a special thank you to our very own The Unknown in the chat room here on YouTube. He is the one that made that last segment and the one with the chains coming down showing those tentacle shadows on the wall. Mm-hmm. He made both of those for the show, and he's been emailing me with some new idea that he's working on. It's really cool, so I'm excited for that.
Yep.
To be done. Sheldon, you and I watched it together.
Yep.
It's pretty cool, yeah?
I'm excited for it, actually. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you for that. Oh dear. Okay. I'm just looking at Shell Smittle. Says she's doing a little promotion there too, but I'm dealing with 2 demonic hauntings. Have a look at my TikTok page and YouTube. Well, thank you, Shell. We'll definitely have to take a look at that. I'll take a look at that after the show.
Absolutely.
But I'm sorry if you're dealing with that. And ladies and gentlemen, one of the things I really love about the Paranormal Portal is that we have a whole community of people that are involved with it. And that means all of you out there as well as us here in the studio. But we also have friends like Sean and Joel who deal with remote helping of people, especially in situations like that. So Shell, if you really are indeed dealing with something, please reach out to me via email because I can get you in touch with them. They've helped a lot of people that have contacted the show with some terrible situations, and perhaps they can help you deal with whatever you're going through as well. So if you're interested in following up on that, please do. You can contact the show at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And also with emotional stuff, Barb Charlton is a wonderful friend of the show as well, and she helps people deal with the PTSD of terrible incidents like that. Now, the beautiful part is all of them do it pro bono. They don't say, hey, for $50 I can help you. Now, they do accept donations, of course, but it's not expected, but it is appreciated. So just so you know, if any of you out there are dealing with something horrible like that and need help, reach out to me at the Paranormal Portal email address. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And I would be happy to connect you to all of them. And hopefully they can help you get through this. Because, if it is indeed demonic, and that's a tough one to say, but if it is indeed demonic, that's like scary, terrible.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be playing around with that at all. You don't want to let it linger. You got to get that stuff out because, man, let me tell you. It's nothing to toy around with at all. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. If that sounds interesting to any of you out there that are dealing with something, by all means, email me. I'll be happy to connect you. So without further ado, let's get to the news. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the Paranormal Portal news desk, which is exactly like the other desk, but that line never gets old for me. I love that line.
It seems not to.
I'm like the guy that'll drive tires until they're like cords, because I'm going to get every bit of tread out of them. That's just like my humor. I'm going to wear it into the dirt.
Even at home.
This is not just YouTube me. This is like me. I will wear the hell out of anything that I can. I will get every bit of life out of whatever I got. So, what the hell was I talking about? Oh, yeah, the news.
Oh, yeah.
You guys ready for some news? I got some news for you, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some articles pulled up here that are quite interesting, at least a little bit interesting. Hopefully a lot interesting. Now, fair warning, not all of them are exactly paranormal, but all of them are not normal, so that kind of makes them paranormal by definition. So let's get into these and find out what we can discover here. The first, many of these are coming from unexplained, Jesus, what the hell?
Oh, an ad.
Unexplained-mysteries.com. Yeah, I left my mouse in the wrong position. They got these auto-firing ads. It's like, yeah. All right, unexplained-mysteries.com brings us, dogs are able to tell when somebody is lying. You heard that right, folks. They can detect lies. I don't know how they tell you. Hey, don't trust that guy. He's lying. But maybe they do. Maybe they've got to tell. It says it's harder than you might think to fool a dog. A new study has indicated that our canine companions can often tell whether or not someone is telling the truth. The research, which is carried out by scientists at the University of Vienna, aimed to determine whether dogs are capable of picking up on some subtle clues and indicators that humans typically use when deciding whether or not another person is being truthful. For the experiment, they recruited 260 dogs of various breeds. The dogs were each taught to follow the advice of an unfamiliar human who would pick one or two bowls which had a treat hidden underneath it. If the dogs followed the advice, they would receive the treat. To mix things up, however, the dogs were then allowed to observe the treat being switched to a different bowl, sometimes with a second human watching and sometimes with nobody watching. Afterwards, if the person pointing out the location of the treat had not been present during the switch up and pointed to the wrong bowl, the dogs seemed to be aware that the treat wasn't there and refused to follow their advice. Well, I don't think that's really... That's kind of they're kind of reworking the actual deal here.
Yeah.
Even more interesting was the fact that the dogs also refused to follow the wrong advice of the human who had been present during the switch-up, indicating that they knew they were being lied to. As it turns out, therefore, dogs are not as easily fooled as you might think. Well, no, they just knew where the treat was.
They can smell it.
Right. Well, I'm sure, but I don't think that... I don't really think they read that right.
No.
So the dog knew where the treat was, and then somebody tried to point to a false bowl, and the dog's like, I'm not that stupid. I know it's over there. It's not like these are lie detectors. They're just they just knew where the treat was. So I don't know. This might I wonder who's funding this, because these guys are working that budget. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah.
Groundbreaking. Dogs can tell when you're lying. No, they just know where the treat is.
They're just not stupid. That's all.
They know where stuff to eat is. That doesn't mean they're good at lying detecting.
Yeah.
That's a bit of an embellishment there, but great article all the same. I love it. That's a really weird way to spin that, though. Yeah. But anyway, whatever the case, we got more news, maybe even better news than that. But apparently, dogs are good at finding treats, I guess, is the takeaway from that deal. Yes, they are. Yeah. Okay. Couldn't account for the fact that they can smell like 50 times better than we can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, even if they couldn't see it.
I don't smell a meat snack under that bowl. Weird. No, you're lying. That's it. I know you're lying. No, they just know where the treat is. Anyway, let's get on with it. The next article is a weird one. They're all weird, but this one's a little weirder. Yeah. Maybe not paranormal, but definitely something weird medically. And this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. 37-year-old wakes up believing he's 16.
Huh.
But just thinking, like, that's most middle-aged men when they hang out with younger people. I can catch that football. Nope. They're in traction. Daniel Porter got the fright of his life when he woke up one day having forgotten 21 years of his life. Wow.
Wait, wow.
I don't know if you could select that. That might work out good, though. There's some parts of my last 21 years I'd be okay not remembering.
Yeah, that's okay. That's not a bad thing.
When he woke one morning in July last year, Daniel had suffered an episode of amnesia so extreme that he'd completely forgotten everything that had happened to him over the last 2 decades. Believing that he was 16 and due to go to school, he was shocked to discover that he was lying next to a strange woman.
Oh, no.
Oh man, that poor lady. Her life just changed drastically. And when he looked at the mirror, an unfamiliar face looked back at him. Looked back at him. In reality, the woman was his wife. Oh man, for better or for worse, lady. Just remember that. He was 37 years old and he even had a 10-year-old daughter. He woke up one morning and just had no idea who I was or where he is. This is his wife talking. Said his wife, Ruth. He was very confused. I could tell he didn't recognize the room. He thought he was either drunk or had gone home with a woman or had been kidnapped. I could see him looking for an escape route. Doctors eventually diagnosed him with a transient global amnesia, a form of short-term memory loss that can occur very suddenly. Sounds like long-term memory loss. That's not short-term.
That's not that.
Short-term is like under 2 minutes, isn't it? Fortunately, Daniel started to recall details of his life within 24 hours. However, much of what had happened to him over the last 20 years never returned. He ended up having to quit his job because he could no longer remember any of his training. It was like his brain just said it didn't want to do it anymore and just swiped 20 years of memories, said Ruth. I know that when people have been through trauma, they can lose memory of it, but I didn't know it could cause 20 years of memory loss. Wow, that's bizarre.
Just to go to bed one day and then wake up and you just forgot everything.
Could you imagine, let's say you go to bed and you wake up and in reality, it's been 20 years. So you go to the mirror and you're wiping off your face and it's like, nah. Where'd all that come from?
I actually can't. I have no idea what that even would feel like.
I know, that'd be horrible.
That is crazy.
That poor guy and that poor woman too, because she's doing a whole life inventory right here. She's going, but maybe things weren't perfect, and this is a chance to recreate the bliss she's been looking for. I don't know.
This is like a literally new start to their relationship.
What was that movie? I don't know if you ever saw it. It was a movie with Harrison Ford, and he was this really arrogant, cocky business guy, and he ends up going to a convenience store, and he gets shot in the head, and he survives, but he ends up like a child afterwards. It's like it did so much brain damage that he was this child. But his family stuck by him, and it's really a beautiful story, but it's just you just can't imagine. I can't imagine what that would be like. I mean, just like a reset. That's pretty crazy.
There is an actual story about that and a movie made from it where
maybe that's the story then.
It was the wife in that story though.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty good movie too. That was based on that story.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, at any rate, that's a pretty terrific series of events.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
To wake up and be 21 years older than you thought you were.
Did he say he had trauma in the article?
No, I don't know. He just woke up one day and didn't remember being alive for 21 years.
That's kind of
scary.
It's
just last memory. It's kind of like his brain kind of stopped at 16 years old. He thought he was supposed to get up and go to school. Wow is right.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Maybe we are literally evolve into different people, and maybe those old people that we were are still in there somewhere dormant, and for whatever reason, whatever happened to him, just reinitialized the 16-year-old version of himself and brought that to the forefront. I don't know.
I mean, nothing is impossible.
Right.
So,
well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's very true. I don't know. That's very strange, though.
Also, Alpha says, or he was 16 and woke up at 41.
Well, either way, it's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
He's got 21 years missing either way, and he's got to put this all together.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did for a living, but, he had to quit the job, too. So that's pretty profound. Oof. Weird stuff. All right, let's get to the next one.
Rachel says he was shot twice. The bullet in his shoulder was the one that caused the brain injury through blood loss.
Wait, are you talking about the Harrison Ford movie or this article?
I don't know. Rachel said it.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm talking to her. I did catch that. She was the one making the statement. I just wanted to know which one she was referring to.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so let me pull up the chat. What is it, Rachel? You got to type fast. He was shot twice, and the bullet in his shoulder was the one that caused the brain injury through blood loss. Okay. Okay, well, we'll wait for Rachel to come back with that.
Yeah.
But let's continue on.
Regarding Henry.
Oh, yeah, that's the movie with Harrison Ford.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, indeed. Okay, all right. So here's something that'll make you think. You ever see that movie? What the hell is it with Seth Rogen doing that? He's like this gelatin thing in their monsters. What is it called? Monsters versus Aliens, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
This story reminds me of that. And this is a real story.
Oh, Bob. Yeah. Yep.
Reminds me of Bob. What's your name? Susan. Ooh. Ooh. But this is kind of reminds me of Bob from Monsters versus Aliens. It says, brainless blob can think and make decisions.
Oh.
There it is, folks. Scientists have observed a type of slime mold that is surprisingly brainy given its total lack of a brain. Yep, Bob. Obligatory political jokes aside, the research, which concerns the type of slime mold known as Physarum polycephalum, has forced scientists to reconsider what constitutes brainless. Boy, oh man, the punchlines that just flew into my head. I can't say any of them, but just no, they were hilarious. Intriguingly, despite having no brain to speak of, this blob-like organism was found to be capable of surprisingly complex calculations and decision-making for a blob anyway. To find out more, researchers from Wyss Institute at Harvard University and the Allen Discovery Center at Tufts University conducted an experiment designed to test its environmental awareness. The findings revealed a novel preference and sensing capability in the unicellular organism, with the mold using its body as both a distributed sensor array and computational substrate. The study suggests that further research into brainless organisms is warranted. What's cool about Physarum is that its decision-making behavior is morphogenesis, said senior author Mike Levin. It ends up being a very nice intersector point between decision-making in three-dimensional space, which is behavior, and decision-making in morphological space and patterning. Because we don't have the chemical sources, because we don't have any chemical sources, we can truly see how this thing is thinking or what it's using to think, said study first author Nirosha Murugan. What we see is that in its initial thinking or buffering stage, as I think about it, it's using information from its environment from a biosphere point of view by tugging or sensing the actual substrate and then processing that information and growing towards the higher mass strain or strain angle. That's interesting. But, I mean, is this that much different than jellyfish? Aren't jellyfish basically these colonies of single-celled organisms? And they're navigating oceans and doing their thing, right?
I'd be curious about that, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I might be absolutely wrong. It could be completely different, or maybe this is a much simpler organism than those that comprise jellyfish. But I think at any rate, there are examples in nature of these colony type things that act as a single organism. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really cool either way. But very cool. There's Bob. That's how it starts.
Bob's ancestor.
Next, he'll be eating ham and fighting aliens. So I love how you just throw a ham in and it just bubbles into a bone. Oh, no. All right. That's enough about Bob. Yeah. Or what about Bob? Another movie. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. All right. So let's get to the next one. This is weird. I don't know what this one says, but I gotta scroll first and see. Make sure it's not just a huge article. Some of these get really big, and nope, this one's fine. And it says, this is from unexplained-mysteries.com. Again, please support this site. Visit it. Check out the articles there. Really phenomenal articles. Well done. And this one is Lucid Dreaming Study Reports Alien Contact. Alien Contact. You heard it right. In a recent experiment, lucid dreaming was used as a tool to enable volunteers to attempt contact with aliens. A press release detailing the study, which was authored by Michael Raduga, Andre Shashkov, and Zana Zanusova of the Phase Research Center in Moscow. Moscow, I would have never guessed. No. Those names are definitely from Moscow. Can be viewed below. It said scientists, it wasn't that big. Scientists published results from an experiment in which 152 lucid dreaming practitioners tried to contact aliens while asleep. The most plausible reports were accompanied by fear and sleep paralysis, which are common for real alien abduction stories. 152 volunteers were instructed to enter a lucid dream and there to picture themselves experience contact with aliens. Of the participants, 114 achieved the goal, revealing unexpected similarities with actual alien abduction reports. The study was conducted at Phase Research Center, a research unit of REM space devoted to the investigation of lucid dreams, sleep paralysis, etc. The paper was accepted in the peer-reviewed journal International Journal of Dream Research. Authors were mentioned before. Lucid dreams are a form of REM sleep, during which a person becomes aware of their actions and can control the events unfolding in the dream. Millions of people experience it spontaneously, and at the same time, people have believed in extraterrestrial civilizations for centuries. Books, films, and the media often describe flying saucers visiting our planet. Even Elvis Presley and John Lennon reported having come into contact with aliens. I didn't know Elvis did.
Yeah.
Oh, you knew that?
I remember a story my grandmother told me at one time.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Many such stories are associated with sleep paralysis or awakening. Russian researchers decided to check how intentional contacts with aliens in dreams resemble real alien abduction reports. They conducted an experiment involving 152 lucid dreaming practitioners. The volunteers had to deliberately meet with aliens in a dream, and as a result, 114 people reported a successful experience of communicating with extraterrestrial civilizations. Someone even managed to talk to the aliens and board their spacecraft. The researchers divided these contact reports into two groups. Absurd. That's group one. Dreamlike experiences and realistic could be confused with reality. It turned out that fear and sleep paralysis, which is typical for many real contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations, often occurred in the second group. This fact is the researchers' main finding, being a strong argument in favor of the dreamlike nature of many encounters, if it is possible to do so deliberately. How often do such situations occur by accident? Interesting. So that raises the question then, are abduction scenarios, are they really physical or are they perhaps extra dimensional?
Yeah.
And that's the big question. So when people experience moving through walls and things like that, is that just them in a lucid dreaming state or in an out-of-body experience type of state? Are they being pulled out of their body and into, some other form of reality where these aliens may exist? And oftentimes we've heard that, a lot of people hypothesize that aliens are not from across the stars. They're extra dimensional. They're just able to reach our dimension from their own. And maybe there's something to that.
I could believe it.
And it doesn't negate the experiences just because it's perhaps not actually physically happening. It's still maybe equally as valid because, if we are indeed existing on many planes of reality, which I believe we are, then those experiences are just as valid as our waking ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely do.
Okay.
Always.
You're one of the few that do. All right, let's go to the next one. And very interesting. I don't know. That's very curious, but interesting. Let's go to the next one. The next one is, oh, yeah. I did pull this one up. I got to look at this one, too, because some of these sound like they might be extraordinarily long, which moves them out of the news category and into the regular show category. This one's very short. It says, again, from unexplained-mysteries.com, Harvard led team to search for alien space tech. This is all these articles are brand new. So,
Oh, good.
a team of scientists has launched a new project with the aim of hunting down alien technosignatures. Known as the Galileo Project, this new research endeavor is headed up by Harvard University's Avi Loeb and will involve the participation of scientists from multiple institutions across the globe. Its key goal will be to look for alien technosignatures, evidence of extraterrestrial technology in space that might show up in astronomical observations, and study data recorded by telescopes. Sorry, I'm a little my tongue isn't working quite yet. Blah, blah, blah. Such technosignatures could be from orbital platforms around a planet, space probes, ships, or even larger megastructures, such as platforms designed to harvest the power of a star or a black hole, like a Dyson sphere, from Star Trek lore, the Dyson sphere. The project will involve developing new algorithms using artificial intelligence to help find potential hits. Science should not reject potential extraterrestrial explanations because of social stigma or cultural preferences that are not conducive to the scientific method of unbiased empirical inquiry, says Loeb. We now must dare to look through new telescopes, both literally and figuratively. With the topic of UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, being more relevant now than ever before, there is a lot of interest in the possibility that we are being visited by intelligent aliens. If such beings are really out there, perhaps the Galileo Project will find conclusive evidence, and it will certainly be interesting to see what they come up with over the coming years. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Avi Loeb, was the gentleman from Harvard who went on record saying that the Oumuamua meteor that passed by was not, in fact, a meteor at all. It was perhaps a vehicle or other space junk that was discarded by a higher intelligence, because and a lot of the reason that he said that was because of the dimensions of the object itself. It didn't seem like structurally like anything else we've ever seen pass by. It was far too thin and long. It was like a knife blade or something like that. It was what it kind of resembled. Huh. That's my own spin on it. But at any rate, every other meteorite or meteor or comet has been this mass. It's been a huge mass that's jettisoning through space. So whatever it was, and the fact that it took a weird turn by the sun that shouldn't have been possible, definitely led him to believe, hey, look, this might not just be some space rocks flying by. This could very well be some technology from a distant civilization. And that, I think, is incredibly exciting. And I love the fact that he really went out and said this, that, with no qualms about it. He said, hey, I think this is something else. So, got to respect that.
At least they're utilizing our sun as a landfill. That's nice.
Well, it didn't dump into our sun. It took a turn by our sun and then came by and shot off out of the solar system.
Oh,
so,
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it just did this real weird thing that it shouldn't have been possible to do if it was just a piece of debris.
Well, I thought my joke was funny.
It sure was. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate that joke. I've always appreciated your humor.
Also, Maggie M10 says, I recorded something on my infrared camera the other night.
Ooh.
It was interesting given how windy it was and that it barely moves in the sky but seems to flip/flash. I don't think it was a spider or moth.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, if you recorded that, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
By all means, please send it to paranormalportalradio@gmail.com if you'd like me to look at it.
Please do.
I think that'd be really cool. Okay, I got one more.
All right.
You seen that movie Shark Boy and Lava Girl when you were little?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I sure have.
Well, apparently there's a Shark Boy in India.
Ooh.
I'm just saying. This is a report coming from unexplained-mysteries.com. And it's from 2019. I don't know what happened after this, but this has got to be an expensive dental visit. This is a young boy in India found to have 526 teeth.
Wow, oh my gosh,
that's a lot of teeth to jam into a little kid's mouth.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I would think that'd be painful, but I would think so.
Can you imagine that kid when he's teething? I mean, like most babies are just irritable. That kid would have been screaming.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
It says doctors couldn't believe their eyes when they found hundreds of teeth in the mouth of a 7-year-old boy. The huge number of additional teeth, which were as small as 0.1 millimeter, were found inside a sac nestled within the molar region of the boy's lower jaw. It's believed that a type of benign tumor known as a compound composite odontoma was responsible. Fortunately, doctors were able to successfully remove the extra teeth from the boy's mouth. The teeth were of variable sizes and ranging from the smallest at 0.1 millimeter to the largest 3 millimeters, said Pratibha Ramani, head of oral and maxillofacial pathology at the Savitha Dental College and Hospital in Chennai. They had a small crown, enamel, and a small root. While we had to drill down into the top of the lower jaw and make a window to remove the sac, as the sac was going deeper into the tissue, the size of the teeth was becoming very small. Incredibly, despite his condition, the boy had suffered only from occasional toothache. The only thing that was bothering him was that the tooth on that side had not erupted. It was empty, and he had occasional pain. And there was slight swelling that was increasing in size, said Ramani. With the extra teeth removed, the boy has since been discharged from the hospital and is doing well. Okay, so they weren't all over his mouth. They were just in a little sack, and they were dinky little grains, most likely, but
Size of rice, basically.
Yeah, or smaller.
Yeah, even smaller. Yeah.
I think the biggest one might have been like a half a size of a rice kernel, but
1 millimeter.
Yeah. The other one was like 0.1 millimeter, the smallest. Yeah. So that's pretty dinky, but it's still strange. Very weird stuff, folks. But I will tell you what, this is going to wrap up our news edition for this Wednesday evening. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let's get back to the regularly scheduled program. Let's get back to the regularly scheduled program. I don't know what I'm doing. It's like my mouth is doing something completely different sometimes. It's the Wednesday curse after having a couple days off and not enunciating clearly. I'm mostly mumbling all the other time, aren't I, Sheldon?
Yeah, just a little bit,
exactly like that. Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah. Dad, can I? Whatever. I don't care. Just quiet down. I'm watching this. No, I'm not that kind of dad.
Not yet.
Not yet. I may turn that corner and become the crotchety old man.
It's the next evolution.
Yeah, that's my perfect form.
Yeah. If
I was a Pokemon, it'd be my perfect form. He evolved. Or devolved, as the case is. But yeah, no, I'm trying to get my mouth working again. So the phone lines are open now, folks. If you want to call in and be a part of the journey, then you certainly can. Because I love hearing from you guys.
I do too.
You guys complete me. Right, Sheldon?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Even Sheldon agrees.
I 100% do.
2 out of 3 of us agree.
Wait, what? 3?
Well, my other personality. But
oh, yeah, right. I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's the mumbling old man, me. Anyway, let's get to more of this fun paranormal stuff that we've got pulled up and on deck for us. But if you want to call in, the phone number again is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. 00.
It's also in the upper left-hand corner of your screen.
It is. It's there all the time. Not only to call, but for your viewing pleasure.
Yes.
Tucked safely under the words Paranormal Portal. All right. So have we missed anything in chat? Anything else? Oh, there's a paranormal. It was in the Harrison for. Oh, that was Rachel's comment.
Yeah.
Very cool. Rachel I mean, you picked the right name, Rachel. Rachel
Yes.
gets it
Yeah,
right. It's
she
like
sure did.
she's like our Paranormal Portal Google. Our own Alexa.
Yeah.
Alexa, say, Rachel, what was that movie with Harrison Ford?
That's what she'll be. Yeah.
Yeah,
She'll be the fact checker of the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see where we're going now, Sheldon. Where are we going?
Going into more stories, or
Yeah.
maybe we can have some discussions. Maybe talk to the audience. Who knows? Wherever the show leads us.
Well, that's where it usually goes. That's where it absolutely usually goes. Last time we did the show, we did a segment. Was it last time? Yeah, I guess so. We talked about the Dog Man.
Oh.
And I had this one pulled up. And we covered a few reports of Dogman activity that's, from a couple of different news stations or television news stations on their websites. But there was one article that I never did get to. And I would like to get to that now just to clear it out. And it's something that both you and Portal Mom might want to know about. This article is coming from KDHL, 920 AM and 97.9 FM, KDHLradio.com. And this is, have you ever heard of the Minnesota Dogman?
I'm excited.
So, you're excited.
Yeah.
Just don't go out in the woods
I can go
anymore.
exploring now.
Yeah, you can go exploring. To change your name to Lunch Meat.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, of course, when the Dogman phenomenon started out, it was the Michigan Dogman. Everybody kind of knew about it in the Fortean and cryptid circles. Then they started coming in reports from Wisconsin and Ohio, and it kind of spiderwebbed from there. That, and maybe as I suggested on the show that we talked about, the Dog Eat Dog World, I suggested that maybe it was like the Bigfoot, where everybody had a regional kind of phenomena, but they only had a regional name for it. And then once like with the Bigfoot, there was many different versions: Wild Man, Grass Man, Skunk Ape, Boogers, Hairy Men, and so on and so forth. And there was Bigfoot was the term that kind of cemented it all together, because people heard of this Bigfoot, and then they heard reports about the Bigfoot and the Patterson-Gimlin film, and people went, wait, we got those here. They look like that here, but we call them blah, whether it's Momo from Missouri, which may or may not be a Bigfoot-type creature, but it's something big and hairy. And apparently has 3 toes as well, which is a little different. But it also tied together. So maybe the Dogman's kind of the same thing. That first people heard about the Michigan Dogman, then they heard about Ohio and Wisconsin, and it just kind of spiderwebbed out. And then there's the ancient references to these werewolves and such back across the pond that kind of came over with the settlers. And so maybe it took a unifying term, but now there's a Minnesota Dogman. And if I'd known this as a kid, I probably wouldn't have been up in the woods getting growled at myself.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in the woods as a kid, a lot of time. I love the woods. I still love the woods, but I just think I'm a little more hesitant now than ever before. Let me blow this up a little bit because it's absolutely tiny.
Yeah, dinky wording, yeah.
There we go. We'll go up to 175. Even I can read this. All right, so let me do this. All right, so this again is coming from KDHL 920 AM, 97.9 FM, KDHLradio.com. Have you ever heard about the Loch Ness Monster? But did you know? That's kind of awkward. Have you ever heard? Yeah, but did you know? It's like that friend everybody has that'll ask you some question and then just go right into what they wanted to talk about. It won't even be related. But did you know Minnesota also has a monster? The Minnesota Dogman. There have been a few alleged sightings in northern Minnesota of this cryptid. Let's talk about some of them. All of these stories have been posted on Cryptid Wiki on Fandom. All 3 of these are from anonymous people, so do with that what you will. The first alleged sighting of this Dogman was just north of Duluth at an Air Force base in 1999. This anonymous guy says he was working on the 3rd shift, which runs 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. He said he was on a side of the base near a forest in the patrol truck, which is a Ford F-150. As he was driving around, he noticed a pair of eyes reflect back at him. The eyes were apparently the same height as his, even though he was sitting in an F-105.
Oh.
Well, how did his change? I think it's a typo. F-150.
Yeah.
Then whatever it was took off. He drove after it and only saw the back of the creature as it bounded into the forest. He says it looked wolf-like. It had huge back paws, a tail about 2 feet long, matted fur that was blonde/light brown, and he could hear it running through the forest and said it sounded like a moose. It was so loud. The next alleged sighting of the Minnesota Dogman is from Fergus Falls, should be an S on there, in 2009. This man was driving into a town on a country road. He noticed on the side of the road 3 deer, so he stopped to look at them. Then he noticed a bizarre creature behind a tree watching the deer, as if waiting for the right opportunity to pounce. He said that it appeared to be bipedal, and what seemed to be one of the creature's hands was leaning on the tree, and it looked like it had opposable thumbs. If the creature stood up, it would have been probably about 7 feet tall, according to the guy. And he also said it had a protruding muzzle, broad shoulders, a slender waist, thick and muscular thighs. Well, eventually, the deer ran off, and then the creature turned and looked at him. He got so freaked out that he slammed on the gas and took off. The final alleged sighting took place in Long Prairie. They don't list a date, but say it happened in the summer. The anonymous man says he was out hunting squirrels early one morning when he saw a humanoid dog thing sitting at the edge of the woods. He shot at it a couple of times. There was a yelp, and whatever it was ran off. He called the police, who came out to take a look, and they found a few paw prints and eventually said it was probably just a wolf, but this anonymous guy wasn't totally convinced. What do you think? Do you believe these stories of the Minnesota Dogman? Or do you think they're just fun stories to tell around the campfire? And there you go. It wasn't a great article, but it was an article.
Well,
and it was one that we never covered, so
yeah.
I wanted to put that out there. And it's interesting because you don't hear often about Minnesota Dogman sightings, but if they're in Michigan and they're in Wisconsin, I can tell you they're in Minnesota, because there's not really a whole lot of difference between Minnesota and Wisconsin, other than part of it is split by the Mississippi River. But north of the Twin Cities, the Mississippi River does not divide the states. So, divide the states, I should say. So, it's not like they couldn't find their way over there. Yeah. Especially in northern Minnesota, where they could come from the upper peninsula of Michigan as well. So, and into Canada, and ad infinitum. But it's very interesting. So, there are reports of apparently dogmen in northern Minnesota anyway. And if they're in northern Minnesota, then they're probably in southern Minnesota, because dogmen just seem to go wherever the hell they want. One thing Linda Godfrey did say is, and I thought this was very interesting, in all of her reports, she had compiled a number of them and had done a hell of a lot of research. And she said the one thing that she always saw about the dogman behavior was that it seemed to travel by waterways. In other words, it would always follow waterways to do traveling. Not unlike the Bigfoot, but the Bigfoot isn't exclusively that way, as they're sighted out in deserts, they're sighted in high altitudes, they're sighted everywhere. The dogmen may not be quite as versatile as that, and may really require that water being close. I don't know why, but it is a point that she made when we were talking when she was on the show. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think of the idea that there are dogmen in Minnesota?
Well, I think time to bring some cooked bacon and go up north.
You gonna strap on some bacon and see what you find?
See what we find.
Well,
no.
That I wouldn't recommend that. Because as you are one of my children, I wouldn't probably go with that research technique. Putting bacon out there, you might find. Well, hell, you'll find everything then.
Yeah, you'll find, the
black bears, the raccoons, the badgers, the opossums, everything will come out for some bacon. Because everybody loves bacon, right?
That's right.
I think so. But that's the last of the Dogman stories that we had pulled up, and I just want to share it now. So then I want to go through the rest of this article that we had been reading the other night as well. And this one talks about near-death experiences. So we're going to kind of hopscotch all over the place tonight, but it's okay. I mean, we're together. That's all that matters.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
That's my justification to be able to close some tabs. But these are great stories. And as you recall, if you were listening on the last couple shows Sheldon and I did, we did talk about some of these NDEs, the near-death experiences. And again, I am a huge fan of these because I think there's probably no better example of proof that life continues than these near-death experiences. And certainly skeptics will try to explain that away. They'll just try to demystify it and make it a function of a dying brain, releasing a DMT dump, and that might account for some of the phenomena, but not all of it. Not when people are actually outside of their bodies watching what's going on and able to recall those events after coming back to consciousness. I mean, that's not a DMT dump anymore.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, DMT is a pretty fascinating experience. And I'm not saying that there isn't some pretty amazing things you can experience that way, but I don't think people normally project out on DMT and are able to watch their bodies and see what happens around them. So I think these are fascinating, but we're on number 11. And this article is coming from IANDS.org. Whoops, I should probably put this on the screen. IANDS, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And they are referencing Beyond the Light, which is a book I read years ago. And I love this book, along with many others that I've read. This one was wonderful, and several books written by Raymond Moody were absolutely fantastic too. And they really do highlight these accounts that were collected from people who experienced these near-death clinical deaths. They were nearly clinically dead. Well, they were clinically dead, but they got better.
Yeah.
But I got better. As Monty Python. She turned me into a newt, but I got better. I love that line. All right. So we're on number 11 of this an incredible article that was written here. So let me get back to number 11. And we'll start it off talking about these near-death experiences. And if any of you have opinions on that, please feel free to either say so in chat. If you want it to be noticed, you got a comment that you want shared with the show, then put at Paranormal Portal, the at sign, shift number 2, and then Paranormal Portal after it, and it'll showcase it in a big orange box that even I can see, which there's a lot that happens on the show I don't see. Bacon cooking sounds like a million hands clapping.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
A million delicious hands. There is that. Okay, clap really fast. Oh, it sounds like bacon. You're right. Yeah. Sounds like we're cooking up some bacon here on the portal.
Oh, I wish. Oh.
All right, so let's get to this article. And this is, since pleasant and or heaven-like scenarios constitute the vast bulk of reported cases, it's no wonder that the basic storyline has become virtually mythologized in the last 2 decades. That's a new word for me. Yeah. I've never seen that version. Yeah. Just as there is more to the hellish version than meets the eye, so too is there more to the tales of heaven than is generally acknowledged. Our investigation begins with what happened in the spring of 1987 to Janine Wolfe of Troy, New York. She was about 30 years old at the time, and due to complications from endometriosis, she suffered numerous bouts of hemorrhaging, several surgeries, including a hysterectomy, an additional hemorrhage of massive proportions, and finally, emergency surgery. During the final operation, she floated out of her body and entered another realm of existence. This comes from pages 51 through 53 of the paperback version of Beyond the Light. Suddenly, I was aware of being in the most beautiful garden I've ever seen. I felt whole and loved. My sense of well-being was complete. I heard celestial music clearly, Oh, excuse me. And sorry, that was not celestial at all. That was Gatorade.
That was just natural.
Yeah, it was. Where the hell was I? I felt whole in love, my sense of well-being. I heard celestial music clearly and saw vivid colored flowers like nothing seen on earth, gorgeous greenery and trees. As I looked around, I saw at a distance on a hill Jesus Christ. All he said to me was that it was up to me whether to come back to earth or not. Well, I chose to come back and to finish my work, and that is when I was born again. The changes in my life, I'm now more aware of people's feelings, beliefs, and needs. I am more compassionate and considerate of others. Also, more confident in God's love. When we delve into Wolf's history, a fascinating pattern emerges, one of disciplined devotion to the spiritual path. Raised in a strict but loving Presbyterian home, she suddenly developed the ability to have visions when but a teenager. Her concerned parents took her for evaluation to the spiritualist camp of Lilydale, located in New York State. These experienced psychics advised them that their daughter had a special gift and that she must decide whether to go on with a normal teenage life or commit herself to spiritual training. Well, she chose to develop her gift. At the age of 21, after 7 years of instruction, Wolf met Sam Lentine, a blind biophysicist, and he had the scientific background and she had the spiritual. Together they formed a professional partnership dedicated to the restoration of true health and wholeness throughout humankind. 14 years later, after the partners had made tremendous strides in the health field and were becoming internationally known for their ability to facilitate the healing process, Lentine died. Today, Wolf is a waitress at a senior citizens facility. Reflecting on her own death experience as well as her present situation, she had this to say. "It was my mother who came into my hospital room and said, 'You have died and come back.' I knew I had died, but she confirmed it. I felt like a baby afterwards, and at the age of 30 was faced with learning about life all over again. I couldn't stand light at first. When I could, everything became brighter and better than before. My whole perspective drastically improved. I felt more grounded, solid, okay. My psychic gifts skyrocketed, but it still took me a long time to readjust. The doctor said, 'Oh, it's just the stress of what you've been through.' Well, I disagreed. What I was going through was unrelated to the surgery. My mother and father understood, and especially my mother's constant love and support made it possible for me to grasp hold of my new life and deal with it. My death stepped up my original commitment to serve as a healer. Afterwards, my abilities sharpened, were better and more attuned. I was much more understanding of others, and when I went back to work, Sam and I peaked in our performance. We did our best work. 5 years later, Sam died. You have to understand how close we were, how bonded our families. Even though I knew death didn't end anything, Sam's transition threw me. I had to readjust all over again. I work with older people now, giving them my love with each touch. I don't know what's ahead of me or where I'll go, but I'm taking massage classes, learning to heal in a different way. My life is now in God's hands. New opportunities for me to serve are opening up." And that's an interesting one, because it sounds like I don't know if she was really transformed as much as she was enhanced by the experience, maybe.
Yeah.
Because some people come back, and here's the thing with near-death experiences, the psychic awareness is really profoundly addressed in so many of these studies, that people that come back seem to have heightened awareness and even psychic abilities are spawned in the wake of these events, and I think that's really fantastic. Number 12 in this is back in 1932. Arthur E. Jensen, a university graduate and staunch materialist turned syndicated cartoonist, decided to take some time off to research his weekly cartoon strip, Adventurous Willie Wispo. Never heard of that one. Since his main character was a hobo, Jensen became one for a while, blending in with the other 16 million unemployed at the time in our nation's history. He bummed rides from Chicago through Minnesota until a young man in a convertible coupe picked him up on the way to Winnipeg. Going too fast for the road conditions, the car hit a 3-foot-high ridge of oiled gravel and flipped into a series of violent somersaults. Both men were catapulted through the cloth top before the car smashed into a ditch. Well, the driver escaped unharmed, but Jensen was injured, losing consciousness just as two female spectators rushed to his aid. Pages 53 to 56 of Beyond the Light. Gradually, the Earth scene faded away, and through it loomed a bright, new, beautiful world, beautiful beyond imagination. For half a minute, I could see both worlds at once. Finally, when the Earth was all gone, I stood in a glory that could only be heaven. In the background were two beautiful, round-topped mountains similar to Fujiyama in Japan. The tops were snow-capped, and the slopes were adorned with foliage of indescribable beauty. The mountains appeared to be about 15 miles away, yet I could see individual flowers growing on their slopes, and I estimated my vision to be about 100 times better than on Earth. To the left was a shimmering lake containing a different kind of water, clear, golden, radiant, and alluring. It seemed to be alive. The whole landscape was carpeted with grass so vivid, clear, and green that it defies description. To the right was a grove of large, luxuriant trees composed of the same clear material that seemed to make up everything. I saw 20 people beyond the first trees playing a singing dancing game, something like Skip to My Lou, and they were having a hilarious time holding hands and dancing in a circle, fast and lively. As soon as they saw me, 4 of the players left the game and joyfully skipped over to greet me. As they approached, I estimated their ages to be 130, 220, and 112. Their bodies seemed almost weightless, and the grace and beauty of their easy movements was fascinating to watch. Both sexes had long, luxuriant hair entwined with flowers, which hung down in glossy masses to their waist. Their only clothing was a gossamer loincloth with a loop over one shoulder and a broad ribbon streaming out behind in graceful curves and curlicues. Okay. Their magnificence not only thrilled me, but filled me with awe. The oldest, largest, and strongest-looking man announced pleasantly, "You are in the land of the dead. We lived on Earth, just like you, till we came here." He invited me to look at my arm. I looked, and it was translucent. That is, I could dimly see through it. Next, they had me look at the grass and trees, and they were also translucent. It was exactly the way the Bible had described heaven. Then I noticed that the landscape was gradually becoming familiar. It seemed as if I had been here before, and I remembered what was on the other side of the mountains. Then, with a sudden burst of joy, I realized that this was my real home. Back on Earth, I had been a visitor, a misfit, a homesick stranger. With a sigh of relief, I said to myself, "Thank God I'm back again. This time I'll stay." The oldest man, who looked like a Greek god, continued to explain, "Everything over here is pure. The elements don't mix or break down as they do on Earth. Everything is kept in place by an all-pervading master vibration, which prevents aging, and that's why things don't get dirty or wear out, and why everything looks so bright and new." Then I understood how heaven could be eternal. Jensen's rapturous visit was lengthy. More details are contained in his self-published book, I Saw Heaven. It's out of print, but photocopies are available. Blah, blah, blah. From, someone in Caldwell, Ohio. Or Idaho, rather. Oh. That's down south. Jensen at Micron.net. He did not want to leave, but he was told, "You have more important work to do on Earth, and you must go back and do it. There will come a time of great confusion, and the people will need your stabilizing influence. When your work on Earth is done, you can come back here and stay." Born on a Nebraska sandhill during the blizzard of 1898, Jensen recalled being force-fed religion as a youngster. Not only did he turn against it, but he started challenging his parents at every turn, including questioning the way they ate. He observed that their farm animals did just fine on a diet of fresh greens and whole grains, yet family members were always suffering indigestion and constipation from the white flour, sugar, and grease they consumed. Behind his parents' back, he cured himself by eating bran flakes. he continued to defy the conventions of his day, switching from atheism to mysticism after his near-death experience at the age of 34, marrying afterwards and built his own home in Perma, Idaho, from blocks of tufa, which is pumice, he and his sons quarried. He later became an educator, public speaker, was active in politics, specialized in historical sculpture. His work adorns Parma's City Park, was a movie extra in several Hollywood films, an authority on organic gardening and nutrition, and was singled out as one of Idaho's most distinguished citizens.
Wow.
Although a public figure, Jensen was frequently at odds with the school boards where he taught, opposing any procedure that capped a child's creative drive, speaking out against the incarceration of American citizens of Japanese ancestry during World War II, and ignoring school rules by sharing his own near-death experience in class as proof to his students that mortality matters and morality matters, and life really has a purpose. Ironically, Jensen's still questioning whether or not he had fulfilled his life's work when he returned home in 1992, the quiet benefactor of thousands. Very cool.
Wow.
That's a neat story, right?
That is a nice story.
Yeah, again, as we were reading these before, this is what he saw and this is what he experienced, but I wonder if the experience changes for each person, and maybe the reason why that people see, like some people see, and this isn't me talking against any religion or invalidating it, but the people that are very Christian will see Jesus. The people that are of other beliefs will see things that resonate to them. Of course, the loved ones is a big comfort as well, and so that have passed before. But I often wonder about that because there is variety in these experiences. There's quite a bit of variety. The more you read, I mean, nobody has one experience that's just carbon copied. Everybody has a unique experience with different things that they're witnessing. And I think the idea of that is that it's not like the earth where things are the way they are and you see them, and other people, like you go to a mountain and you see a mountain. Well, the other people that come there see a mountain too. They may see a little variations of that mountain, but the point is that they see a mountain. But I think in these experiences, people see what comforts them, or what symbols and maybe what they expect to see. Maybe that's the best way to phrase that. And I don't know that that's true or not, but I have read several books on the topic. I did research it quite extensively for a number of years because I was fascinated by it. And I think, again, these experiences definitely help to reinforce the idea that life continues. We're not just in these temporary journeys that just end as if someone flips off a switch, which I think is incredibly comforting personally.
My exact beliefs, Rachel says, spiritual growth might occur in NDEs, leading to enhancing the psychic abilities, a physical increase of the person's aura, like a larger antenna that senses things others don't.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Like it awakens something.
Yeah.
It awakens a part of ourselves that lays dormant and buried under the three dimensions of overstimulus that we have while we're in these world, in this experience. I think that, something changes in, maybe it awakens a part of the person's spiritual mind. I don't know how else to say it. And maybe it affects the physical mind in the same way. Like, what were, maybe blocked passages in our brains open up, and things, maybe some abilities that are in our brains become more accessible as a result to, clinically dying.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's possible. Again, it's all possible.
It's possible.
It's possible, but let's go to number 13. I don't know if we're going to read all these because they are extraordinarily long, aren't they?
They are. That's okay.
Are you enjoying these?
I'm very much enjoying these.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious. And if all of you, I hope you all are enjoying these. I'll read one more for tonight and then we'll move on to some other stuff because there's a lot more to get to. But
sure,
I do love these stories. I really do. Alice Morrison Mays nearly died at the Marine Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, after being rushed there in a coma. She had given birth to her third son 2 weeks before, and it was May 1952. Pages 56 to 60 in the Beyond the Light book. From my position near the ceiling, I watched as they began to wrap both my legs, from the tip of the toes to my hips, and then my arms and hands up to my shoulders. This was to keep what blood remained for my heart and lungs. Then they tilted my body so my legs were up in the air and I was standing on my head. I was furious about the way they had handled Jeff's birth, and now they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, squawking loudly. And here I was looking at that silent bandaged body laying on the tilt table, head to the floor, legs and feet in the air, and I was venting my anger, my frustration from the corner of the ceiling on the right side of my body. I can remember the anger vividly, fury, at the powerless position this whole event put me in. And I was very verbal about it, silently up there, as my mind raced to express its reaction, worry, and concern. Their statements were, "We're losing her," frightened me, and I'd get pissed all over again. The scene changed, and I was no longer in that room. I found myself in a place of such beauty and peace. It was timeless and spaceless. I was aware of delicate and shifting hues of colors, with their accompanying rainbows of sound. Though there was no noise in the sound, it might have felt like wind and bells were it earthly. I hung there, floating. Then I became aware of other loving and caring beings hovering near me. Their presence was so welcoming and nurturing, and they appeared formless in the way I was accustomed by now to seeing things. I don't know how to describe them. I was aware of some bearded male figures in white robes in a semicircle around me. The atmosphere became blended as though made of translucent clouds, and I watched as these clouds and their delicate shifting colors moved through and around us. A dialogue softly started with answers to my unfinished questions, almost before I could form them. They said they were my guides and helpers, as well as being God's messengers. Even though they were assigned to me as a human and always available to me, they had other purposes too. They were in charge of other realms in creation and had the capacity of being in several places simultaneously. They were also in charge of several different levels of knowledge. I became aware of an ecstasy and a joy that permeated the whole, unfolding beyond anything that I had experienced in my living 25 years up to that point. Even having 2 previous children whom I wanted very much couldn't touch the glow of this special experience. Then I was aware of an immense presence coming towards me, bathed in white, shimmering light that glowed and at times sparkled like diamonds. Everything else seen, the colors beings faded into the distance as the light being permeated everything. I was being addressed by an overwhelming presence. Even though I felt unworthy, I was being lifted into that which I could embrace. The joy and ecstasy were intoxicating. It was explained that I could remain there if I wanted. It was a choice I could make. There was much teaching going on, and I was just there silently, quietly. I felt myself expanding and becoming a part of all that was, in total freedom unconditionally. I became aware again that I needed to make a choice. Part of me wanted to remain forever, but I finally realized I didn't want to leave a new baby motherless. I left with sadness and reluctance. Almost instantly, I felt re-entry into my body through a silver cord at the top of my head. There was something skin, or maybe akin to a physical bump.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as I entered, I heard someone near me say, "Oh, we've got her back." And I was told I had 2 pieces of placenta as large as grapefruits removed. Morrison Mays told no one except her husband about the monumental experience that she had just had. She managed to squelch any noticeable after effects until 1967, when developing psychic sensitivities warned her of a need to make a major change in her life or die. My inner voice burst into activity, somehow picking up the loose threads of my near-death experience. The growth effect was propelling me to move on and develop my own responsibility and talents, and I finally listened. My spiritual life was beginning. I divorced and started a career as a musician, cellist, in a major symphony orchestra. 12 years later, because of the serious difficulty walking and severe hip pain, she had a right hip osteotomy To reduce arthritic damage, the joint in her hip was placed in a different weight-bearing position. The operation went well, but upon reviving, Morrison Mays entered an altered state of consciousness similar to the near-death episode that she continued to slip in and out of for 6 months. Throughout this lengthy visionary experience, she received lessons from the other side. These etheric teachings covered such topics as geography of the soul, karma, advanced physics, and the cosmology of the human experiment. Again, her life was profoundly affected, and she began volunteering in a hospice afterwards and enrolled in a 3-year spiritual psychology course. A second near-death event 7 years later plunked her right back in that same etheric classroom she had attended after hip surgery, and this occasion was precipitated by a sudden onslaught of a severe type of emphysema and the collapse of her adrenal system, Addison's disease. Several shakes from what she feels was a Kundalini episode complicated the situation. Traditionally, Kundalini is said to be a powerful energy that lies dormant in a person's sacrum until he or she begins to develop spiritually. Then it supposedly rises up the spine, stimulating the glandular centers until it bursts out of a person's head. Not literally, of course, but yeah. It's like the alien.
Makes it burst out of your skull, I guess.
Morrison Mays turned to chiropractic physician when medical treatment failed her, and once more completely changed her life. She left the world she had created for herself after her divorce and moved bag and baggage to Quincy, Illinois, the center of her birth. Virtually wheelchair-bound and robbed by illness of much of her energy, Morrison Mays has instituted a series of classical music concerts for the public that are staged in her own living room. Newspaper headlines label her concerts healing music. You'd never know by the glow on her face and her ever-present smile that she lives in almost constant pain. I chose a big one this lifetime. The spiritual guidance I received makes living this life possible. I've walked through the dark side and have no fear of my shadow anymore, and I'm here to heal my life and do serious writing, though I'm not certain if I am ready to write about the teachings that I've been given. What I want is to do a book about the memories I have of choosing my parents before I was born, my experience in the womb, and my rebirthing through the near-death phenomena. A role model for the handicapped, Morrison Mays has become a living legend. She offered this about the severity of her situation. There's still a quality of life available. You just have to be open enough to explore it. You can empower yourself. Wow. I find that really inspiring. I mean, she could have just given up, right?
No kidding.
She
Yeah.
could have just phoned it in after that and said, well, that's it. Morphine and cartoons from now on. I mean,
Yeah.
really. That could have been her whole journey after that. And nobody would have blamed her,
Of course.
but she didn't do that. She kept going forward. So good for her. Way to roll. Gotta respect that, ladies and gentlemen. Well, you should. You don't
Yeah.
gotta, but you should. Wow. Is it really already 8:23?
It is. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. I was looking at that a little bit ago, too.
Yeah. Rachel says, could it be newly uncovered psychic abilities may be the evolution that the afterlife enhances to the soul, connect all souls, and people who come back and bring it back with them? Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is my 2 cents for whatever that's worth. We're all interconnected. We perceive ourselves as these solitary beings, as if we're these little islands that float around in this realm, bump into each other and try to figure out our way through it. But in reality, I think that by virtue of being alive, and this is my own spirituality coming into it, so forgive my definitions. I don't mean to imply that they're the only definitions or the right definitions. They're just right for me. But I think that life is the gift of a spark from some divine source. By virtue of us being alive, we are interconnected with all other life that was gifted by this same divine source. So we exist in the spider web. We don't exist as these individual blobs of light. We are on a string of lights that encompass the entire universes and such. So I think that these experiences reawaken that in us and reawaken that connection to all things. And that's where the sensitivity and the psychic ability comes from, is that, you are connected to all things. So if you feel, like when you hit a piece of furniture, you feel your toe when you stub it, and that because it's physically a part of us. But I think the spiritual awakeness is realizing that, everything is our toe, for lack of a better definition. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's just my thoughts on it. I don't know.
I think so. I mean, like, otherwise, not sympathy, but how can you have empathy if you can't be connected to other things in some deeper way?
Sure.
Like true empathy, not just mainly sympathy. When people are sad, when they're upset, we can kind of guess that, based on context clues of body language, whatnot. But being able to feel what they're feeling, in a sense, is I think even evidence to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Yep, absolutely. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. We've got a call, so how about we get to this call?
Awesome.
And it's been on hold for 6 minutes.
Oh, my.
6 minutes. All right, so let's get to this. Area code 619. You're on the air.
Hi, Brent. It's a regular girl.
Hey, Regula. How you doing?
Hello.
Great to hear from you.
Oh, all right. Great show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Interesting stuff, right?
Oh, yes.
Well, we try to dive into as much different stuff as we can, because I think all this stuff is incredibly fascinating. What do you think about all this?
It is. It is. It is to me, too. And I agree with you where you said that you think perhaps it's different for each person.
Yeah.
And I think I've called about this before, because I myself have had these near-death experiences, several of them.
Wow.
And what I'm a little bit envious of and curious, it fascinates me how most others seem to get this narrative or this storyline, and how their life seems to fall together and in place afterwards. Like so I guess mine is not done yet or something,
Sure.
Right? I guess I got to figure that way. Why I called, this last story was really fascinating to me, is that I also, like you, have spent a lot of time listening to other people's near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And recently now, in addition to that, I have revisited Blavatsky, Helen Blavatsky, and have just kind of rediscovered, or like I've heard him again, the facts about her life that even though I've known him, I owned her books, just kind of, and I want to mention them again.
Oh, sure.
These facts about her life, because they're kind of interesting to me. And one is that she said what you mentioned, which is, and she didn't say this, although she did. Yes, her research kind of shows or highlights the fact that perhaps indeed, when we die and pass the spirit planes, perhaps the experience is like that, that we have the experience that would best suit us, But she is someone who investigated her great, if you Google her, what comes up is the Theosophical Society and science and religion, right?
Okay.
That's what they were interested in, how the world of science was similar to the world of religion.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on today again, right?
Right.
This is like big talk, big area of discussion. And I didn't realize that, but that I did. Of course I did. But then again, no, I didn't.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that her book, Isis Unveiled, was a bestseller at the time. Did you realize that?
No, I didn't. No.
Like, if someone had asked you that? Yeah, right. 1887.
Wow.
And that Thomas Edison, was a member of the Theosophical Society. Like, I wouldn't have been able to know that, say that on the Nats. And what occurred to me, like while I was listening and thinking about it, was, what is he kind of known for? The light bulb, right?
Yeah.
So I started thinking, like back then, the concept of light as we know it was probably real different back then.
Sure.
Like, the light bulb had not even been invented yet. So when we talk about the notion of light was probably real different back then. And so one of the things that she did that I wasn't really thinking about so much when I read Isis Unveiled, or attempted to read Isis Unveiled the first time, because that is one hell of a volume of a book to get through, right? I mean, even if you just take a look at it and thumb through it, that's a lot of words there, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a bestseller, though.
Sure.
It was a bestseller.
Wow.
And now, one of the things that was going on, which I did kind of know about, was spiritualism at the time was in its heyday. Spiritualism and something that they called, was it magnetism or mesmerism?
Mesmerism.
But spiritualism. In fact, spiritualism, I do believe, is known as the first official American religion.
Oh.
And like I said, it was having its heyday. But one of the things that Madame Blavatsky was doing was she was doing some of the things that spiritualists were doing, but in the daytime, in broad daylight. She wasn't doing it in the dark.
Sure.
She was sort of exposing some of the spiritualists and saying that what they were doing was fraudulent. I didn't realize this. Did you?
Oh, no, I did not. No.
Oh.
No, yeah, I didn't either. I kind of had passed over that. Maybe I was so like overwhelmed by the other facts about Blavatsky. You know, the depths of the esoteric writings. You know, the root races and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
That I didn't realize that this stuff now that I'm talking about, that she was sort of exposing the fraudulent nature of some of the spiritualists. And she was saying to them, hey, these guys that you think are hanging out that are your relatives in the spirit planes, they're not. They're tricksters. That's what she was saying.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah, and to kind of prove that, she was doing some of the things, the paranormal activities, she was doing those in broad daylight.
Sure.
To show them that the teachers who had helped her write these volumes were real, and that these things could be done, that these things were scientific. And in fact, there's a couple of sentences, I can't quote them for you now, where she says, or the teachers tell her to write this in the book, that there will come a day where you will see that these things that you consider now to be paranormal are indeed scientific. You just can't see that yet.
Sure. That makes
so,
sense.
And so she was doing these things like levitation and, you know, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, saying to them, a lot of these things that you guys are paying money for, you know, by paying these people called mediums. And she did not ever do mediumship. She said, these books are not written. I'm not doing it, writing these things by going into trance or mediumship.
Mm-hmm.
And what you guys are doing by going to the mediums, a lot of these readings are all like, yeah, there are beings in the spirit planes, but many of them coming through are not your relatives. They're not higher beings.
Sure.
And she began to teach about what goes on in the spirit planes. And recently I've become fascinated with this again. Like, you know, what are the spirit planes like? And perhaps there are these times that we're living in now. Well, perhaps it would be possible for the veil to be lifted and we could see between worlds. But how would I really react if that happened?
Right.
Wouldn't I be frightened? Wouldn't I question my own mental health?
Sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if that really, really did happen.
No.
Because when she did it, what happened? What happened when she did it? Well, there was a huge smear campaign against her that
Sure.
I'm beginning to see was so good and so powerful that it's lasted up until these times, today. Still, when you say the word, her name, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, there's this kind of buzz in the air, like, Oh,
Yeah.
bad name,
Sure.
bad person, crazy person.
Yeah.
You know, she still has the bad press worked.
Sure. Well,
Still.
I mean, that's been a function of anybody that brings, and I'm not overly familiar with her work, but anybody that brings out a form of truth that threatens an established practice, they will always be attacked. The world is not kind to its teachers,
I started to see that even though she was not political,
Mm-hmm.
that the kind of things that she was talking about, because she was dealing with issues that had to do with science and religion, and they were big, big issues of the day, just
Mm-hmm.
like they are today.
Sure.
So even though she herself was not political, she was making political waves.
Right.
The things she said did have political impact, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there's reason.
And that's a great a great name to bring up for any of you out there listening. If you haven't looked up Helen Blavatsky, check out her work. She did a lot of fascinating things. And again, I'm not overly familiar with what she did, but of course I've certainly heard through the years her name come up over and over. And I think she did some incredible stuff, and she certainly made brought a lot of things to light that were relegated to the shadows prior to that. So that was really powerful stuff.
Like the other thing that was going on during that time was Darwin's book had just been published.
Oh, sure.
So that the things that were in her book, Isis Unveiled, threatened his theories
Oh, okay.
directly.
Wow.
So apparently, there was a bit of a ruffle going on about that.
Well, yeah, we know that Darwin's work was very heavily adopted by the scientific communities and still is. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the juggernaut in the room, so to speak. And anything that challenges that, of course, will be met with great opposition.
Yeah.
So,
But still, I'll tell you, what fascinates me still is this notion that all of these things can be done in the light and doesn't need to be done in the dark.
oh, sure. I mean, even paranormal investigating, that is oftentimes the paranormal shows do it at night. And I think the reason why they do is just to make it more theatrical. But I mean,
Sure.
there's paranormal activity during the days as well. And a lot of ghost activity happens in broad daylight. It doesn't have to be in the, the dead of night. But I think that just adds to the suspense, when they're filming these things,
Yeah.
But it's incredible stuff.
So,
Yeah.
This is incredible. I really appreciate your calling, and I appreciate you bringing this stuff up because, of course, I always enjoy when we talk, Regula. I've missed you a bunch.
I'm here
Okay.
and there.
Well, good. Please keep listening and please keep calling in because it's always great to hear your take on things, and I really appreciate you calling in tonight.
Thanks, Brent.
All right, my dear. Take care. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for calling.
Okay.
Okay, we'll see you.
All righty.
Good
Bye.
night. That's cool. I haven't heard from Regula in a long time. But, yeah, the phone lines are open, folks. If you have ideas or anything you want to share as well, by all means, 720-923-0500 is the numbers for fun here on the Paranormal Portal. I want to make sure to get to this article because, of course, a longtime friend of the show is Mr. MCAT. And I don't know if he's out there listening tonight or if he's been in, but this is an article that I saw it and I was like, oh, MCAT, I got to read this one on the show because if he's not here, he may catch it after the fact. But this is an article from liveabout.com, and this one is talking about the phantom of the truck stop. No, I haven't pre-read this, so I don't know what we're in for here, but this is coming from liveabout.com, and it was written by Stephen Wagner. It was updated last at May 22nd, 2017. So let's dive into this and see what Stephen Wagner found about the phantom of the truck stop. MCAT, if you're out there listening, this one's for you, brother. All right, so the life of a long-haul trucker is a difficult one. Long, tedious hours on the road, away from family for days or even weeks at a time. As Mike L. explains, they also witness many weird and incredible things in their interstate travels, yet Mike was not prepared for what he experienced one summer night at a tiny truck stop in the middle of nowhere. Hardly the place where one would expect a ghost, if that's what it was. But this is Mike's story. And it's funny because MCAT's name is Mike, too. So this might be from him, but I will tell you this, Mike. MCAT has shared a bunch of stuff on when he's called in, things he's experienced over the road. And we've heard from other long-haul truck drivers as well. Actually, in Australia, we heard from a truck driver who had an incredible Yowie experience. And so, yeah, I mean, if there's things to see on the road, these guys are the ones out there, punching the miles. So they're going to see a lot more strangeness than most of us, I think. But anyway, it says, I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and I drive all across the lower 48 states. I see some unusual things from time to time, but nothing compares to what I encountered in Palestine, Arkansas in mid-June of 2011. I was on a long haul from Detroit, Michigan to Houston, Texas. This was the day 3 of my trip, and I was beginning to run out of driving hours for the day. I noticed a truck stop / gas station on the side of I-40. Wonder if we've read this one before. Maybe we have, but we're reading it again.
That's fine.
Pulled off and decided to call it a night. I was driving ahead of schedule, so I was going to have myself a long 14-hour break instead of the usual 10. Off the bat, I didn't like the area, but had no other choice. The bathrooms were unkempt and had enough graffiti on the walls to classify itself as an inner-city truck stop. Even though I was practically in the middle of nowhere, it was also a small shop with a parking only for a dozen trucks. Well, after washing up, I purchased a new work knife, some hot food, and headed out to my truck. I sat in the captain's chair and listened to the radio while I ate dinner, with the windows down, letting in the dry wind. The Mississippi River had just begun flooding, and there hadn't been any rain in over a week. The surrounding area was beginning to look like Nevada more than Arkansas. Well, I finished my meal and cleaned up a bit, slid out of my seat and onto the pavement as a gust of warm wind hit me. I strolled over to the dumpster, tossed my garbage inside, and began slowly walking back to my truck. I fished out a filterless cigarette and leaned against the bug-splattered side of my truck and lit it with my lighter. I enjoyed the smoke as I watched the sun set below the horizon. A few more trucks had backed into spots, and I spotted one guy walking out of the store with a bottle of beer in his hand, looking around nervously as he quickly strode over to his truck. The life of a trucker, something interesting and new every day, risking his job over one lousy beer. Jeez. I climbed back into the cab of the truck, dropped down back into the sleeper berth, changed into a pair of pajamas, and lay down to get some rest. I didn't bother setting an alarm. I felt sleep creep over me and accepted it as I drifted off into dream world. Well, I woke with the cab of the truck rocking violently, knocking the bottle of water I had placed on my nightstand over onto the floor, and I sat up, fully awake, and pressed the button on my truck's radio / alarm. It was shortly after 3 in the morning, and I reached down and grabbed the bottle of water that had fallen, twisted the cap off, and took a few gulps before wondering what had rocked my truck so violently. Then I remembered the wind, and I settled back down, got my heart rate back below 100, and lay my head down on the pillow. The truck rocked again, knocking my ashtray over that I had set into the cup holder, and once again tossed my water bottle onto the floor. I flopped on the overhead light, or flipped on, not flopped, flipped off the overhead light, slid on my shoes, grabbed another cigarette from my pack, and opened the curtains, sat in the captain's chair, and shut off the sleeper light. I opened the door and noticed that it had cooled down considerably. I shut off the truck, pocketed the keys, and climbed down onto the pavement just to look around. At this time of night, the truck stop only had lights around the gasoline pumps, and their light could not reach the truck parking area. I looked around a moment, lit my cigarette, and then noticed something. The wind had stopped blowing. I wondered what had caused my truck to rock so violently. Earthquake, maybe? I knew that a few had been reported around Memphis, and I was probably close enough to have felt a tremor, but that rocking motion did not feel like an earthquake. It felt like the wind hitting the side of my truck with a strong gust. Curiously and cautiously, I walked around the front of the truck to my passenger side and looked down the length of my trailer. I noticed movement, low to the ground, about 4 feet. Not fast, but I used my keys to unlock the passenger side door and jumped up and grabbed my large flashlight from the overhead storage compartment. I climbed back down and closed and locked the door. I clicked on the light, shined it down the side of my trailer, and there was a young girl standing off into the field about 10 feet behind my truck. But when I looked harder, she wasn't there. Well, like I said earlier, truck drivers see something new every day. This was certainly new. I began to walk toward the rear of the truck, scanning the field with my flashlight for any trace of the girl I had just seen. And when I reached the back, there was no trace. It must have been a trick of the eyes. Heck, I haven't even fully awakened yet. I glanced over my shoulder, and there were no cars at the pumps around and the clerk definitely hadn't noticed me. I felt the call of the wild coming on and didn't feel much like walking into the store wearing my pajamas. And I was in the middle of nowhere. No one could see me, so I figured no harm, no foul. Stood at the rear of the trailer and did my business. Looking around for that girl again, also hoping that she wasn't hiding behind something watching me do this. I put everything away and and walked to the driver's side of my truck towards the cab. I took the last couple puffs off my cigarette and flung it into the parking lot. Used my keys to unlock the truck and pop the door open. Just as I planted my foot on the fairing, I heard a distinct giggle. A girl's giggle. I stepped back down and shined the flashlight around. Nothing. This is getting kind of creepy, I said aloud. He heard me. A small girl's voice answered back. I jumped backward away from my truck. The voice had come from inside the cab. Something was wrong. I had the entire truck locked up while I was walking around, and there was no way that someone could have gotten in without breaking a window. Steeling myself for what was going to be an uncomfortable encounter at the least, I took a step up on the fairing and leaned my head into the truck. "Is anyone in here?" I asked. I hit the switch to turn on the sleeper berth light. I climbed in, I put a knee on the seat, and peered into the sleeper berth. "Good night," a soft voice said, which seemed to emanate from all around me. I flinched as I heard the word and felt a cold chill run through my body. I slid off the seat and stood up in the cab, bumping my temple at the overhead storage bins. I looked around the sleeper, but no one was there. I turned around and shuffled into the cab to close the door when I saw the young girl standing outside my truck on the pavement, looking up at me with lifeless eyes. Those eyes, you see, weren't meant for a person. They were designed for a predator. And all of a sudden, I felt like prey. I reached forward and slammed the door shut and flicked the lock. I quickly decided that I was not staying here for the rest of the night. I turned the key and heard my truck's motor rumble to life, along with the familiar and annoying buzzing that was my air pressure gauge telling me that I didn't have enough air to release the brakes. I took a furtive glance out the window, and there she stood, still as a tree, looking up at me and smiling. I didn't want to get any closer to the window until I was ready to get my truck moving, and this was wrong. I didn't want any part of this. That girl wasn't human, or at least not anymore, she wasn't. It was almost as if she was something so inhuman that it would take the form of a human. It's hard for me to explain, and I feel sick just thinking about it. I heard the siren shut off and hit the valves to supply air to the brake system, and as the system began to air up, the siren came on again. Screw this, I thought to myself. I have enough to get out of here, and I disengaged the clutch, ground the truck into gear, and roared out of the parking lot like the devil himself was behind me, which, for all I knew, he was. I looked in my side mirror as I was about to start turning right and saw the girl washed in the red and amber glow of my running lights. She was smiling at me and waving. I flew through the gears as quickly as they would let me as I got back onto the interstate. I drove for about 45 minutes, repeatedly hitting the switch to turn on the interior lights to look around the cab and the sleeper before finally spotting a larger truck stop at the next exit. After backing into one of the few remaining spots left, I shut off my lights and turned on the sleeper berth light as I walked into the back and then paused. At the store, I had bought a souvenir. Nothing fancy, just a postcard with a picture of Arkansas on it. I also had bought a new knife. I had never taken the knife out of the box and remembered putting the postcard into a drawer for safekeeping. The point of the blade had been driven directly into the spot on I-40 where I had originally stopped for the night. The blade had been driven in deep, pegging the postcard to my nightstand. It took me several minutes just to work the knife loose enough to withdraw it from the nightstand. Thankfully, when I turned the postcard over, no message had been left for me. To this day, I don't know what I saw. I hear other truckers talk of strange things that they see on the interstates, U.S. highways and state routes, but I've never mentioned my experience. I've always felt that just by mentioning her, I'd walk back out of my truck and there she'd be, sitting on my bunk, waiting for me. I threw that postcard away and tossed the knife into a dumpster. I got another postcard from Arkansas just to keep the collection going. I've got 36 so far.
Wow.
That's creepy. I think I have read that one before, and I'm sorry if that's redundant, folks. Sometimes these stories are pegged all over different sites. So my apologies if that's a repeat. I think it is, but still a poignant story. That's horrible.
Hey, it was good for me at least.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you you haven't probably heard it before, right?
Yeah, I'm probably not, actually.
Probably
I
not.
don't know.
Did it sound familiar?
A little bit,
Did it? Okay.
but I didn't remember it, so it was kind of like hearing it all over again.
Well, good. I'm glad it was an almost new experience. We like to have almost new experiences here on the show.
Rachel, random thought. If spirits, good or evil, are blocked by salt, are they prevented from traveling on roads or sidewalks spread with road salt used to melt ice in winter?
Interesting point, or
Yeah.
interesting question.
Yeah.
Most commonly, I think when spirits are sighted, it's normally, not exclusively, but normally on the side of the road. And maybe that's why, there might be salt residue that's kind of become part of the pavement, and maybe that does create a barrier. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know. I wish I was qualified to answer that, but it could be. It could certainly be. We got another call though.
All right.
Let's get to this another call. And this is from area code 973. You're on the air.
Go on. What?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, who are we talking to?
Ramona?
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Hello?
Hello.
Ramona.
Ramona. How you doing, Ramona? Thanks for calling into the show.
All right.
Are you there?
All right. How about you?
Oh, we're doing good here. Thank you. What's on your mind tonight, Ramona?
I've just been hearing like noise and stuff.
What was that?
I'm just calling into.
Hearing noises. And
Oh, you're hearing noises
Yeah.
in your house?
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh-oh. What are you experiencing?
Just noises. I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, so is it like noises of something moving or footsteps, or is it sound like voices? What are you experiencing?
Just like when things you hear like from afar, you hear the voices in the house.
Yeah. Uh-oh. So do you have a history of things happening at your house, Ramona?
My fiance passed in the house. I guess he's still showing his presence.
Oh. So what kind of gut feeling do you have when you're hearing these things? Does it feel scary, or does it feel like it's not especially scary? How are you feeling?
Like, I guess he's still around, so he's just making them noise to let me know that he's still present.
Oh, well then that's kind of beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really wonderful. I'm sorry for his passing.
Yeah.
How long ago did this happen?
He died like 4 years now.
Oh, my apologies
I'm sorry.
and my condolences to you. That's a tough thing, but
Thank you.
it's nice that he's there with you. I mean, and still being by your side, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
if you would like, this is certainly a situation where, we do have contacts on the show that may be able to help you. Maybe get a message from him, or would you like to connect with one of the psychics?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have email, Ramona?
It's Germano Ramona 207 at gmail.com.
Okay. Would you do me a favor and email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I will connect you with probably with Deb, since it's not a scary type of haunting. It's just somebody's presence there. Maybe he's got something he wants to share with you, and she can help you get those message or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, please email me, and I will get you in touch with Deb, and hopefully we can find out more about what's going on there, Ramona. But that's pretty fascinating. I'm glad that it's not a scary experience for you, because I think that most the activity generally is those people that for whatever reason stay by our side and just want us to know they're there. And it's really I think it's a beautiful thing, but some people may not take it that well. But yeah, email me, Ramona.
That's hard, so I miss him.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. I'm sorry that you've lost him in that way, but I'm glad he's still there with you, and I'll get you in touch with Deb, and we'll see what we can find out about it. Okay, Ramona?
Okay, and Doorman too.
All right, so email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and I'll help you get in touch with Deb, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Ramona.
Thank you.
Thank you for your call. It's great hearing from you.
Take care, Ramona.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
I think those are. Oh, I'm glad you liked that story, Jenny. Thank you. I really think I shared it before, and I do apologize for that. But it is a cool story. It's very, very freaky.
Yeah.
Very freaky.
I mean, even stories like Ramona's beautiful in its own way.
That's really beautiful, because of course, and we hear that all the time in the paranormal, that some people stay with their loved ones, even though that their time ran out, but they wait and then cross with those that they love. So that's a beautiful thing, I think. But yeah, that'll be great, and I'm sure Deb can help her find out more to that. But thank you again for calling in, Ramona. That's wonderful. I love hearing about those things, and I'm especially glad that it wasn't a horrible thing. Of course, frightening hauntings are absolutely devastating to people that experience them. So I'm glad that wasn't your situation at all. But
Yeah.
All right, so let's continue here. I've got, I think, wait, was this the one? Yeah, this is the one. And I've seen this guy interviewed somewhere on YouTube before, and this was years ago, but this could very well have been the interview, that at least part of it that I watched. But I think this guy was, he was at Lockheed Martin. So this is Boyd Bushman, who passed away, but this is an article that deals with some of the things he left in messages at the end of his life, kind of like disclosing things that he'd had to keep secret. So believe him or not, I don't know, but let's check out the article. And this is coming from howsandwhys.com. And this is Boyd Bushman admitted aliens are on Earth. So
All right.
very cool story. Let's see what it says. It says on August 7th, 2014. I was going to say 19. What in the hell? I've been in 19s for a long time. Jeez, I think I did a time slip. American scientist Boyd Bushman died, and for many years, he'd been working as a senior fellow at Lockheed Martin. Before his death, he had recorded a sensational video in which he talked about his work in Area 51, as well as about aliens and UFOs. It says, during the interview, which was kind of a testimony of the scientist, Boyd Bushman even showed photographs of strangers, which, in his opinion, were made using a disposable camera at the military base in Nevada. And you can see that on your screen. Wow. Very interesting. According to him, the U.S. military is dealing not only with the aliens themselves, but also with the vehicles that managed to fly to us. Or that they managed to, managed to fly to us. That was the sentence.
Yeah.
Moreover, in his opinion, a group of specialists is engaged in alien technologies acquired in various ways 24 hours a day. By the way, it is worth mentioning that Lockheed Martin developed the world's first low radar aircraft. Another team member, Ben Rich, also said that technologies are being developed there that make interstellar travel a reality.
Wow.
That's right, yeah. I remember Ben Rich was the guy that said, I think he was the guy that said we could take E.T. home. In his last interview before his death, Boyd Bushman stated that the aliens he knew have long fingers and legs and live on a planet called Quintumnia. Okay. He also noted that there are at least two types of representatives of alien civilizations. Boyd's statement on his deathbed sounds pretty convincing because why should he lie? However, skeptics usually think differently. Everything indicates the fact that the controversy surrounding the subject of UFOs will continue for a long time until there is any evidence that cannot be denied. Well, some of that evidence may very well lie in the TikTok craft that was recorded by naval pilots. I think that's extraordinarily good evidence, as well as the admission by the Pentagon that, look, it's not our stuff. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I think that those are both very strong pieces of evidence. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And of course, we've interviewed Donald Raymond Schmidt, who is a researcher that worked with J. Allen Hynek in his institute. And he was, J. Allen Hynek was involved in Project Blue Book and went on after to do his own research group. And that's where Donald Raymond Schmidt became involved, and they decided to research Roswell. Now, if you haven't heard that interview with him, he appeared on the show twice. Both episodes are absolutely amazing. And they go into the Roswell crash and all the recovery and the cover-up and all of that fascinating discussion. And it very well seems as though a craft was recovered in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, I think was when that happened. Mm-hmm. And so we've had apparently possession of these craft and vehicles, and probably others as well. Of course, Bob Lazar comes up into the discussion. Anybody who dives into this, especially in terms of like Area 51, Bob Lazar was allegedly working at reverse engineering this stuff. And his testimony, I think, is absolutely compelling. So with all of these different pieces of the puzzle out there, I think that it may very well substantiate that a whole lot went on and is going on that we have no knowledge about. Now, I realize that sounds like an overly simplistic statement, but it really is profound because these pieces are out there. And as they mentioned, why would this guy on his deathbed bring all of this stuff to light, knowing that he's, if he's just fabricating it, who would go into their eternity knowing they just filled everyone's head full of crap?
Yeah.
I mean, that just doesn't even wash for me. I mean, I know if I was on my deathbed, the first thing I'd want to be is really forthcoming and honest, because you don't want to drag that luggage with you, across the veil. So I think that these are really compelling pieces of that puzzle. And of course, the more of these pieces that come out, the more I think they substantiate each other, because it's a whole nother person that had top level access to a lot of information. And why would they lie? So I guess you be the judge, but I think this stuff is each piece really substantiates the others and really adds a lot of gravity to the claims that are out there. So that's my opinion on it. But let's get to, where are we at for time? Wow, it's actually 9 already.
Whoa, 9:03.
Wow,
Whoa.
9:03. Where did that happen? How did that happen?
It's always a mystery.
It's always a mystery.
Actually,
I wanted to close with one more article, and I hope you guys don't mind a little bit overtime, but this is an article that I've been meaning to read for a long time. It's been open here forever on my computer, and it's one that I've been really excited to read, but it always gets kind of brushed, to other things that we're talking about. And this article comes from our good friend, Mr. Brent Swanser, who writes for mysteriousuniverse.org. He's brilliant. The guy's amazing. He's always linking me in his articles, and the articles are fascinating, and they're things I've never even heard about before. Now, I'm not claiming to be the most informed person in the paranormal world. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know, and I'll be the first one to tell you that. But he comes with these articles about things that I've never even heard of. It's like, wow. So it's really exciting when he links me in a new article, because I'm always blown away. But not only is he a fascinating writer, but he's incredibly thorough, does an amazing job. His articles are incredibly well written and well researched. And his writings can be found on mysteriousuniverse.org. So if you haven't already been over to mysteriousuniverse.org, you must be living under a rock. Because this site is amazing. It's got thousands of articles by incredible authors like Brent Swanser, Paul Seberg, Nick Redfern writes over there. There's so many great people submitting incredible stories about all these paranormal, Fortean, supernatural topics. So cryptids galore over there. So there's a lot of material to check out. But this article, and specifically, I wanted to read to you guys, and I've wanted to read for a long time. This is another thing that I'd never heard about before. But this is an article by Brent Swanser on mysteriousuniverse.org from June 18th, 2019. And this article is The Strange Case of a Living Dinosaur in the Far North. Now, when you think about dinosaurs, you always think, wouldn't they want to be somewhere warm? But
You think?
yeah, because I think we assume, and maybe rightly so, that if there is a dinosaur, it's going to be cold-blooded. It's going to be reptilian, but maybe not.
Yeah.
So
bird-like, or any of the other depictions.
right, yeah, exactly. So it's hard to say, but I always think, God, they'd want to be somewhere warm. But in this case, maybe not. But it does get warm in the north. Don't get me wrong.
It sure does. More than people think.
More than people think. Yep. So this is, again, from June 18th, 2019. All over the world, there sometimes come to us reports of what can only be described as living dinosaurs of some sort. The tropical regions of our planet are especially prone to this, such as the wilds of Africa and the far reaches of the Amazon rainforest, and yet there have been very strange alleged encounters recorded from other areas that seem to be the furthest thing from anyone's mind when envisioning dinosaurs still roaming the earth. Exactly what I was just saying.
Right.
One such account must surely be that of some sort of gigantic T-Rex-like thing roaming the badlands of the freezing far north of Canada. And it is a historical case that still generates intrigue to this day. On April 15th, 1908, a very curious account from a Georges Dupuy appeared in the French journal Je sais tout. I don't know. That's just my attempt at French. So, Je sais tout. That's my English version of that.
As we would say it, yeah.
Yeah, that's my Americanized French. And told of a harrowing encounter supposedly experienced by two hunters in the frigid remote wilderness of the Yukon Territory in Canada, right up against the border with Alaska. According to the report, San Francisco banker James Lewis Butler and a local gold miner named Tom Leemore had been out hunting moose in the area of Yukon's Clear Creek and had been shaping up to be a good hunt, actually. And as they managed to get on the trail of 3 moose and were drawing closer to their kill when something very bizarre supposedly happened. As the 2 men hunkered down to observe the animals, the very large moose suddenly became very frightened by something unseen off into the trees. One of the animals let out a bellow of warning, and the 3 moose all bolted off in a panic as 2 startled hunters looked on. Wondering what it could have possibly been that had frightened these intimidating animals so badly. However, they weren't about to give up their hunt, and so they tracked the moose through the wilderness, but then they came across quite the unexpected sighting. There, meandering off a portion of marshland, were immense tracks neither of them had ever seen before, measuring a mind-boggling 2.5 feet across and 5 feet in length, as well as what looked like an impression from a tail dragging behind, whatever it was, which had dredged a gouge measuring nearly 2 feet across through the mud. They tried to follow the tracks, but they soon vanished into a rocky area that led into a perilous gorge at a place called Partridge Creek, and the search was called off. Butler and Lemore decided to go get help, making their way to a remote outpost called Armstrong Creek, and there they found it. With the explorer and writer of the article, Georges Dupuy, as well as a French-Canadian missionary named Father Pierre Laveneau, and 5 local native guides to tag along. Their foolhardy expedition found them camped out on a ridge overlooking the area where the massive monster had disappeared, but it would soon make an appearance. It was here on the lonely ridge where the group of men would observe an outlandish beast said to measure nearly 50 feet long, with an estimated weight of 40 tons, and the whole of it covered in coarse black hair or bristles reminiscent of those of a wild boar. The creature was described as being bipedal and possessing a formidable mouth full of teeth and a single imposing horn upon its snout. Rather than do the sensible thing and get out of there, the men supposedly watched the gigantic beast roam around and climb about the rocky gorge for a full 10 minutes, and Laveneau became convinced that what they were seeing was the extinct dinosaur similar to the T-Rex called Ceratosaurus. Amazingly, the ferocious monster at no point seemed to realize it was being watched, and it stalked off into a cold wilderness to leave them breathless and in a state of shock, which especially the native guides reeling in terror. The terrified men abandoned their search for the monster and instead went back to Armstrong Creek and later Dawson City to try to get more men and arms, but no one believed them, and they were unsuccessful. Indeed, according to Dupuy, they were remorselessly mocked upon getting back to civilization, and never made another attempt to figure out what they had seen, leaving it all lost to history. Interestingly, Laveneau would later claim to have seen the creature one more time in 1907 in the same area, this time with a dead caribou held tightly in its jaws as it ran along a frozen river. The account of the Partridge River monster has gone on to become a lesser-known but also much-discussed little corner of cryptozoology. One of those tantalizing cases that has been sort of lost to history and which is infuriating in its inability to be confirmed one way or the other. Of course, there are many reasons to be suspicious of the whole thing, not the least of which is that the creature in question is known solely from these 2 reports, and from over a century ago. And there is the fact that the frigid, unforgiving terrain of modern Yukon does not seem particularly welcoming to an animal such as this. The report of the presence of a tail trail in the muck also somewhat eyebrow-raising, as such dinosaurs were not known to just drag their tails along, but would rather have kept them held above the ground, suggesting an ignorance of the physiology of dinosaurs. Was this all just a hoax? Did any of it happen the way it was described outside of Dupuy's imagination? Or is there something very big and strange lurking about these cold northern lands hidden away from our gaze? Considering that there are no further reports from the region of anything remotely like it, and the age of these reports, it is likely we will never know.
Wow.
So how do you like that?
That's crazy.
A dinosaur up in the Yukon.
Assuming it is correct, that is crazy. But it doesn't surprise me too much, considering, like, as far as our oceans, I if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's like we've only discovered like 10%.
10 to 15%.
Yeah.
There's a lot more out there, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is crazy. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, because it does seem like an odd place to put a dinosaur.
Yeah, but maybe that's just the way to adapt it. I don't,
Maybe that's what happened to the mammoths. I don't know.
They became water monsters, you're right.
Yeah, well, no. I don't think they evolved. I think they might have been lunch meat. But
yeah.
That's pretty creepy. Whatever the case is, I don't know. And again, it's a one-off story. So what do you do with that? I don't know. I've not even ever heard of any like native or Inuit stories to correlate that. Not that I'm extremely well versed in either of those, but I think that's an interesting thing. And it's certainly an odd tale, but I love them anyway. I love these weird stories like this. What is the name of the event in Kelso this weekend? I can't find it and would love to meet up with you guys again. It's called Squatch Fest. Squatch Fest is the name of the event. And yeah, if you're there, by all means, Justin, we'd love to meet you as well. So, and we won't be running a booth or doing any, we're not involved officially except for the fact that we're going to be there. So, we won't have to run and tend to any duties that I know of, unless Wes puts us to work. That could happen, but I don't know. But yeah, it'd be great to see you and anyone else that happens to be in the neighborhood. We'd love to meet everybody we can. And I know that, when we were in Medellin Falls, we met Deanna and we met Kathy and we met Justin. And so we'd love to meet more of you guys. So yeah, of course, brother. Thank you. I hope you make it. That'd be a lot of fun. But I do have to say, I think that's a show.
And it's a good one. I would say
it's one for the books. Again, this is your last journey onto the studio show, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and thank you for filling in and sitting in. Don couldn't make it tonight, ladies and gentlemen. He got tied up at his job, so unfortunately he wasn't here tonight, but I'm glad that Sheldon was, and I think we had fun anyway.
Don always has a backup. Needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can be the utility guy for the portal. We'll just call on you when we got an open seat. Hey, Sheldon, you busy?
Just call me backup.
Your second string, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's what we got for you guys tonight. I hope you enjoyed the journey. And, of course, we love bringing you the journey. So if you wouldn't mind, please spread the word about the portal. Let people that you know that like the paranormal, let them know about the portal. Maybe they'd like it too. And please, by all means, if you're watching the YouTube channel, that's wonderful, and we really appreciate that. But please check out our podcast too, and that's available on all the major podcast players. We're on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Castbox, and there's just a whole laundry list of them. It's even players I've never heard of before, but I mean, I'm fantastically happy that we're on all of them that I've ever found. So if you look wherever you find like Sasquatch Chronicles, that isn't on Wes's page, if you listen in on a player like Spotify or whatever, just do a search for the Paranormal Portal and you should find us too. We'd love to have your support there. And if you're on a site like iTunes and you like the show, please leave us a review. That helps us out a ton. Mm-hmm. Stitcher, they take reviews there. So wherever you can leave reviews, if you don't mind, it would mean a lot to us. So, all right, Sheldon, anything in closing?
Just want to thank everybody for being so welcoming and accepting of me filling in whenever I can, and just making this an even better show than maybe we can provide, I suppose.
Absolutely. It's a group effort.
Yeah.
All of you guys out there and of course what we can bring you here. So we are the culmination of a lot of wonderful people. So thank you for being a part of our journey. And as always, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. That's the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow night for Night Terrors, and then that's going to be the last regularly scheduled show until the next time around, the next Wednesday, because Don and I are going to be busy. We're going to be going over to Kelso, checking out the Squatch Fest. So hopefully if you're in that neck of the woods, you'll stop in and see us there. So other than that, Bigfoot Anon, I just tried to. What did he try to do? Good night, all. I will call in next time. You just tried to? Oh, well, I'm sorry. I didn't see any phone call on the roster there. But, yeah, I'll be on tomorrow night if you want to call in then, Bigfoot and on. I'd love to hear from you. All right, guys, that's what we got. So take care. Sweet dreams. And I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here on YouTube. So watch for me then. And if you're not subscribed, please get subscribed and ring the bell. Then you'll know when we go live. So.
And if we did a good job, like the video.
Yes, please. Please hit those likes. They make us happy.
Yes.
When you hit the like, an angel gets its wings, is what I heard.
Yeah.
I heard that.
That's true. I read it on the internet.
or somebody adopts a kitten or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. Something happy happens. But anyway, good night, everybody.
Good night.